Hey, so I wanted to drop on today and talk to those of you who are feeling like stressed the fuck out, um, trying to make ends meet. I'll turn that off. Trying to make ends meet to provide the best for your families. So I don't know how many of you are there, but I think there's a lot of you. And I think all of us have been there at one point in time, if we're not there now. So I also want to talk to those of you who feel like they're never enough and always have to be more or be better. The ones who never seem to reach the place where it's good enough. That's who I want to talk to. Those who are seeking anything outside of you. When we do that, it creates issues on so many levels. So seeking results outside of you pretty much sets you up for always feeling like you're not good enough. So when you have this much money, you will be worthy of this. When you drive this vehicle, you'll be worthy of this. When you achieve this, then you'll be good enough for this. When you have the best body, then you can find the best partner, whatever it is. That's something outside of you. And as long as you're always seeking that, or feeling those things, or thinking those things, or saying those things, not even, most of the times when we do it, it's not even intentionally, but it comes from the enoughness, feeling of enoughness, or the worthiness comes from outside of you, and you're seeking value outside of yourself. Most of the times we're doing this unconsciously. So when it comes to this, nothing really can shake it. Even if you get that amount of money, that vehicle, that person, that body, whatever it is, what seems to happen is there's always something else that's required for you to feel good enough again, or to feel value or worthy again. Most of us were, unfortunately, born feeling this way or learned it at a very, very, very young age. A lot of us were either born or learned at a very young age, the unworthiness, the not enoughness, and we learned it from our well-meaning parents. Some of us didn't have well-meaning parents and learned in a much harsher way. And I don't know about you, but I've spent years, probably decades, trying to please other people. I was convinced that they would love me for who I am, and that I had to deliver what people wanted, or be what people wanted in order to be accepted, to make them proud and to do right by them. Which ultimately led to me becoming brilliant at reading other people's minds and knowing what they wanted before they even knew it. And to be honest, it was kind of a disaster. It cost me so much energy, so much time, so many opportunities. There was times I was losing friends faster than I could make them. There was times where I was being ghosted by men faster than I could meet them. There was times where I was at extreme odds with loved ones. And there was pretty much always the time where I couldn't relax because I was too busy shape-shifting and being what other people wanted me to be, or what I thought I needed to be, or even how I thought I needed to be from, what my thoughts or my beliefs that I had absorbed or acquired were doing to me. And this pretty much, to feel any sort of peace, I think what happened was, on some level, for lack of better words, I was rebelling. And I would be like fighting for every last bit of self-esteem or value or worth that I actually had left from within, and turned on this super, 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 super strong, powerful, don't care, my way or the highway type attitude. And that worked for me. That worked for as long as it worked. And then I kind of removed my head from my ass and decided that, you know, maybe there's more, and it didn't really feel right on all levels. It was just kind of like flight or fight, like there was really no other way. I didn't know any other way. So ultimately that really didn't work for me. And I started to seek answers. However, nothing that I tried really felt the void at that time, or filled the void, felt the void. And nothing that I tried really filled the void. There was always this void, always needed to be more, always whatever it was. Some people call it materialistic, some people call it insecure. Some people, like, there's going to be different words for every single person depending on their exact scenario and how it feels for you, how it plays out in your life. Some people get super, super insecure, not overly confident, and that it's the same thing. It's just one end of the spectrum to the other. And when you're on that type of a spectrum and you're pretty much unable to receive love or anything positive in a healthy way, no matter who gives it to you, no matter how much love you receive, no matter who you receive it from, it doesn't fill the gap. When you feel unlovable or unworthy or unvalued or not good enough on the inside or on an unconscious level, and maybe you're not even aware that you feel this, you just find yourself always seeking more to feel good enough, or feeling good enough when you have a certain dollar amount in your bank account, or feeling good enough when you drive a certain vehicle, or feeling, do you get what I'm saying? Maybe that's what that looks like for you. But if you go to this extreme to prove this to yourself, to your partner, to others, to your colleagues, to your clients, or well, let me back up. When you're going to the extreme to prove this, it's mostly on an unconscious level. We're not thinking about it. We're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to prove to them. Sometimes we are. If you are, then you are aware. If you're saying, I'm going to prove to them that I will make this much money and I will drive this or whatever it is for you, then you're aware of it. But it's when you're not aware of it that it can be a really big problem. And it doesn't matter which end of the spectrum, once again, that you're on, it's still the same, we'll call it a block. It's still the same thing that's getting in the way of you having actually what you truly do desire. No partner, no friend, no colleague, no client, no anything can make you feel lovable or worthy when you're in that state. You may think you feel it temporarily, but it doesn't ever last. It's pretty much an inside job. You're trying to get other people's affection by giving them what they want. If you're trying to get other people's attention by being what they want you to be, if you're trying to, if you feel worthy because of a certain amount in your bank account or because you did a certain thing, then it's when love becomes transactional for you. So by transactional, I mean it just becomes transactional for you, right? Love becomes transactional for you, for yourself, for you to see your own worth, for you to feel your own worth, it becomes transactional. For others to see that you are worthy, to prove it, right? So if any of this rings true to you, don't be hard on yourself, because you learn to love by watching the adults in your family mostly. And many of us didn't have healthy role models around love, self-worth, value. A lot of different things, but we're going to focus on them. But personally, I can sense in my own situation and in several others' situations that this worthiness that we're living or are living was not entirely ours. It came from, it's how our mothers felt, it's how our fathers felt, it's how our grandfathers felt, it's how our ancestors felt. And I can see in several instances where I have accidentally even passed this on to my own child. And after so many external attempts to heal any patterns or self-worth, it didn't give me permanent results until I started working on a whole nother level. And once I felt this worthiness of love, hearing affection, value, being good enough, on an inside where I just know, where I just knew, where it didn't matter who said what or when, who did what or how they did it or whatever, that it didn't make me feel any less than, and it didn't make me feel like I needed to do any certain thing to feel more worthy or more valued or better in any way. That's when things started to shift for me. I no longer needed to be a workaholic to prove my worth, to provide, to get more, to please, and this isn't even necessarily other people, but this was ultimately what I truly needed for me to feel like I was good enough. I actually felt from the inside that I deserved these things for just being me. And that's really the start of where love stopped being transactional for me. I didn't need to make an effort to get people's love. I didn't actually even need their love. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't appreciate it or desire it, but I certainly didn't need them to fill me up. I didn't need more money to feel like I was good enough. I didn't need to do something to make somebody else happy or say what they would want to hear. Now that's a tricky one for me because I've never really been that person who said anything that somebody wanted to hear. But so many of us say what we think people want to hear. And oftentimes now I found myself saying nothing. Whereas before I would pretty much always say, the other end of the spectrum, I would say whatever they didn't want to hear. And then I found myself saying, it was either saying too far or saying nothing, and neither one of them was really healthy. So saying nothing can be just as bad as saying what people want to hear. I'm not saying that there aren't situations that come along that test this, but it's definitely when you feel it from the inside, everything changes. And that's when things go awry, it helps me stay on course without being completely triggered or feeling worthless or less than or unworthy or not good enough, and going back to any old patterns or old ways. For some of you, this might look like rage, anger, violence, withdrawal, depression, and in some cases, some extreme cases, it can look like suicide. I've had clients show up on the verge of suicide, and I'm happy to say that none of them have taken their lives. So if you're like me and you feel like there is more to life than this, you found yourself dreaming of a space where you can, let's call it, you feel like you're already enough. If you want to feel like that, if you want to truly think, believe, know, and feel that, like I did, if you want to have what you want because you're worthy and you just know your worth from within, you don't have to prove it to anyone. If you are ready to feel lovable and to be able to give and receive love on a non-transactional level, if you're having any issues asking for what you want, maybe even knowing what you want, because on some level, when we have issues asking for what we want or knowing what we want, there's this part of us deep down inside that doesn't believe we're good enough. So why bother? Or you're greedy if you do that. Or, you have enough already. All of those stories that we were told from a very early age, believe it or not, are ingrained in our minds and play on an unconscious level over and over and over again. And so before we go to do anything, those are already creating our reactions, our emotions, and our energy ultimately around whether or not we are worthy of it. And it can be really, really exhausting to achieve something when you consciously have to make choices against what is the truth on the inside. So when your truth on the inside matches the truth on the outside, that's when it becomes easy. That's when navigating change becomes easy. But I like to call what I've been leaning towards lately and feeling really drawn to is kind of like the diamond in the rough. That's kind of the commonality of every single person that cross paths with me, whether they become a client or not. I just feel like all of us on some level are this diamond that just needs to shine like the diamond that they are. And so that's kind of the way I see it, right? There's always a little something for everybody where we can improve or find something that we didn't even know was there or hidden from us or running on an unconscious level. And sometimes even on a soul level. At any time, if you don't see your reality showing up the way that you desire it to be, reacting to the things, the action steps and the things that you're taking the way that you desire it to be, it could very possibly also be on a soul level. And so there's a series, what I find through my experience is there's a series of things that I guess combine, or cycles or different things that all kind of happen, and that's what creates these patterns, and that's what puts them on repeat. So for example, I call it the potential triangle. So if you're trying to, there's typically some part of us that, you know, feels like they're not good enough. There's some type of doubt, some type of belief, some type of hidden block there for each of us. And then, which makes you feel like you're not able to be lovable, or you're not good enough to receive the love or whatever that is that you desire. But then there's this other part of you that has this proof because you've made mistakes before, or someone else has made mistakes before, or someone else has told you this by mistake before, and then it goes back up to believing you're enough. So it's like this cycle that just keeps going around, and it can actually kind of, go any which way around. But those are three of the main things, and ultimately they stem from a fear. They're fears that are deeply coming from within. Lots of times we don't even notice that we have those fears, but those fears show up as fear of making mistakes, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being lovable. Those fears show up in various different ways. They show up in anger, violence, insecurity, lack of confidence. And I'm hearing failure mostly because we accidentally self-sabotage ourselves. So when we can stop self-sabotaging ourselves and find the root of what makes us do this, or the root of what makes us constantly seeking more when perhaps we already have enough, when perhaps we already are enough, or whatever that is, because I believe that every one of us is enough, and it all exists from within each and every one of us. So when we believe it on the inside, then that is what can shine out, and that is what creates your reality, and that's when permanent results and changes happen. So when we reach this point, that's when you're able to navigate change with ease, reach your full potential, but not only do those two things with ease, but also to have a happy heart. And for me, that's really important because I've been through so many different programs and, things I've even put myself through. But if your heart's not happy when you're doing it, to me, is it really worth it? It's not a sacrifice that I'm willing to make anymore. So ultimately, working through, these different things, starting with the not enoughness and the not worthiness, but starting with the not enoughness, and then working through a series of different things. And I listed 3 to start with: not enoughness, not being lovable, fear of not being lovable, fear of making mistakes, working through those, and then moving into some other things. As you go through and just sift through and find any little fragmented pieces or weak spots, I guess, and you strengthen them, then all of this comes together in a nice, easy way, I guess, for lack of better, in an easy way. As you just go through it, it almost feels natural. So if this is something that's kind of standing out to you or calling you, or, you know, you've been, even if your health is decreasing, or your relationships are suffering, or your finances are not well, if there's some area of your life that's super, super important to you, and you're feeling drawn to me in any sort of way, today I'm actually, before I do anything, even on my website, before I even post anything on my website about it, I'm being guided to just reach out and offer anybody who is feeling super, super, super excited about this, who's feeling even uneasy, or who any of this resonated with, 50% off of an online retreat that I'm doing. I'm doing it on the 28th and 29th of January, and it is going to be geared towards being already enough. The first 10 people who join are going to get 50% off. And after that, it's not going to be 50% off. I only intend on doing each one of these different pieces as I go through this series that I'm being guided to share, because it's what I've went through myself. It's what I've done with others. It's what I've seen work to get to the really deep levels and to be permanently free of it. I'm only planning to do each one of these topics once. Now, don't get me wrong, they're probably going to entangle and show up in other ones, but to really, really focus on, you know, the not enoughness, that's what's happening on the 28th and 29th. And some of them are going to lead into the next one. Well, they're all going to lead into the next one. But this one is going to be, it's going to focus on that and really go deep into what needs to be opened up there and reprogrammed around, or whatever that looks like for whoever decides to come. And if you aren't able to attend that weekend because you just cannot change your schedule, I'm going to record it. And if you buy it now at 50% off, you will also receive the recording, so you will get it. But I highly recommend being there, because the difference in when you see the recording, you're probably going to say, I'm not going to miss the next one. I'm going to be live at the next one, right? So it's just you'll receive the same, but you will just feel so much more supported by being there live, because you're not alone. If you have something, I guarantee you there's somebody else with the exact same issue, or it feels the same way, or thinks the same way, or is struggling with the same thing, or whatever that is, right? And it's not like a big pity party, but what I find that happens is when I do these things, and that's why I mostly work in groups now. I definitely do one-on-one, but mostly everything I do is in groups. So when I do this stuff in groups, the perfect person volunteers, and everyone receives a shift and reprograms around it, and sees, you know, they might see what they didn't know. They become aware of what was creating their issue or their problem or whatever, their block or whatever you want to call it, right? So after the 50%, after 10 people, it won't be 50% anymore. It won't be 50% off anymore. It will be $500. whether that's the recording or live. So if I was you, I would be sure to take advantage of 50% off, regardless, even before you know if you can make it, because that's either way, it will be 50% saving for you. Another great thing about doing it in a group, and it's another reason I like doing it in a group, is because my focus is always the ripple effect. And we shift on an energetic level as well as a conscious level. But when you shift on an energetic level, the more people, and not that the people who watch the recording don't get part of this shift, but the more who do this and the more who participate and the more who show up on a conscious level, you might be there and be like, and you know, think you would never volunteer, but then feel inclined to volunteer and find an even deeper meaning or reason or something than what you would on your own. But the shift happens and this ripple effect is created. And when we come together as a group, opposed to me just doing this with every single person one-on-one, our entire families, all of our loved ones shift with us. When we work on this level, people show up differently. Your relationships will start to change around you. Finances will start to change. Your health, anything that you're suffering with, will start to shift. And I like to say, your problems just kind of fix themselves and go away. So just making sure there isn't anything else that I wanted to mention. Being live, you'll have an opportunity to ask your questions in real time. And I think that pretty much covers it. But if you're feeling inclined, I don't have a web page, nothing fancy built. I am just throwing this out there to people on my social media and in my email. Before I do any of that, I have a link pretty much set up where you can pay. And if that's something that interests you, just message me or comment below and I will reach out to you with the link and send it to you to get registered. Because I know none of you want to be number 11 and pay full price. Not that it's not worth it. Trust me, I have paid more than that myself for the exact same shift, but for the exact same knowledge, for all of it, right? I've spent more time, and what I'm trying to do for you guys is to save you time, save you the money, save you the suffering, save you the learning the hard way, and give you an opportunity to benefit from what I have learned and done for myself and others. So don't be number 11 because of that secret little nagging voice who maybe doesn't believe that it would work for you or that you're good enough, or because you think somebody else needs that money more than you do, or whatever it is coming up. Just take notice of all those thoughts that are preventing you from moving forward and investing in yourself today. Because the only reason that I wouldn't invest in something like this if I came across it on, you know, some platform or wherever it was, is if I had already received that ship. Like if I already knew I was there, if I already, if I didn't see any reason for it. That's the only reason I can think. If I had already done it and I believed on every single level, and honestly, I've done this work and a lot of it. And if I came across, you know, a new person, say, besides what I already am doing, if I wasn't doing anything, I would consider it. And if it felt right, I would do it. But I'm just encouraging you guys to believe that you're good enough, believe that it can work for you, believe that it's possible for you. And even if that's not possible, allow my belief and my in you to carry you forward so that you can have what you want, so that you can navigate change with ease, so you can reach your potential with ease, and ultimately, so you can have a happy heart. Today, just give it to yourself. That's all I ask. And one last thing, if you find yourself being all up in here, thinking, you know, I want to, and then but, and all these excuses come in, just take a few deep breaths, put your hands on your heart, and then just ask. It's kind of like a little hack to go within. So have a super fantastic rest of your day. I look forward to hanging out with you guys on the last weekend of the month. And I'm really excited for all that you guys bring and for the ripple effect, because that's why I do what I do. I love hearing the stories. I love seeing the results. I love seeing it change people's lives who aren't even in. I guess that's one thing. One more thing I guess you can mention, if you're that person who's looks around, and if there's like even one person that you're like, oh man, life would be so much easier if that person changed, or whatever that looks like for you. This type of work that we do in my online retreat that I just spoke of is the type of work that that person will change just by you doing the work. So when you do the work, everyone else around you changes. And I think work's the wrong word. When you do what's best for you, everything around you changes. Those people end up changing and showing up in a different way because you have a different level of belief in yourself. So I'm going to leave it at that. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys next weekend.